Howdy, y'all. Welcome to 5 o'clock somewhere. Another wonderful day. Cheers. I'm here with Keith Rogel, a designer of spaces, and we're going to get into exactly what that is. We got the McGraw brothers here today as well, and Neil Alderati will be interviewing them at 55 Degrees and a series of other things. Neil has been a man in this valley since ponytails were in style, and he definitely wore a beautiful one. So we're looking forward to hearing from them. But for now, we're going to talk to Keith a little bit. Keith was the designer of the space behind, or actually the space that we call the Carneros Inn, and is really a designer of human atmospheres and human interaction through the architecture of land. He's going to describe that a whole lot better. But why don't we talk about how you started with the Carneros Inn and move on from there?
So terrific. I so appreciate the way you characterize the role. I mean, the functional task or the common name is being a developer, and I always struggle with that. Even grape growers are developers of land into grape growing, but they don't tend to want to refer to themselves as developers for similar reasons. We want to try to make something that makes the place better. And the motivation for me to do the work that I do was about seeing places that had somehow outlasted their usefulness. So that was a very rundown RV and boat storage yard, a really terrible mobile home park where the residents were suing the owner to try to fix it and get out of it.
So Carneros Inn was basically a mess. It was a mobile park. It was a misused space. And
it had its utility. It had declined. It had been paved, urbanized with sewage ponds and old structures and old buildings. And this sense clearly was we ought to be able to do better. And what interested me was first that aspect, that there is so much land, and that's consistent throughout my career, land that has already been urbanized, that has already been built on, where there's the chance to bring it new life. We don't need to go out into, for example, what we're looking at ahead of us here through the windows into this beautiful wetland area and green space. So there's a issue about the use of land. Let's preserve and protect the existing lands. And then there's this fascinating issue to me about, as you said, how do you orchestrate space? How do you create pieces that affect people's behavior? And it's really clear that they do, that people go to places throughout the world where they feel happy. They are happy socializing, they're shopping, they're working, they're living, they interact with each other. And there are other places where that doesn't happen. So that's a kind of philosophy. Carneros is really like a little village.
Right. And it's a beautiful place. It's not just a hotel. It's not just a resort or a restaurant. It's all of those things. And it is. It's an outdoor fire pits. When you're there, you're part of community. Everyone interacts. They play bocce. And that has to do with the way that he designed the space to be used. It has to do with flow, ins and outs. And it is a fantastic place if you haven't been there. And if you haven't been here at Toot Social, go ahead, log in, go to tootsuite.com, log in, ask us questions. We've got a bunch coming up on Twitter, but keep that going. What's going on now in downtown Napa, though, is basically a renaissance. We're seeing all kinds of changes. And one of the biggest questions people have been asking is, what are we going to do with the old COPIA building? It was meant to be this, blissful wine, home experience, everything you can imagine, but it didn't work out. And it's been dormant. And now Keith is going to tell us what's next for not just that space, but the area around it.
Well, again, I think that the spirit, you begin with what's the spirit of the place, that the places that people want to go, the places that people love are rooted in their particular character and history. And COPIA began with a beautiful impulse from Margaret Mondavi and Robert Mondavi and others who supported them about celebrating the food and wine of this place. But then as it was executed over time, well, we've ended up with a big sea of parking lots, a building that's a forbidding building, and no awareness of the fact that the land is, in fact, virtually an island, surrounded by water, surrounded by this reclaimed river with beautiful trees, and great activity, or the potential for activity running right through the middle. So the first piece for us was not to focus on this individual building of the COPIA building, but if one steps back, if you look at Google Earth or an aerial photograph, you see the building, although a big building, is a small piece of the total land. And in fact, you have land that goes from water to water with a street called First running through the middle of it. And so what makes interesting cities and neighborhoods? Vibrant streets that have activity on both sides of the street. It becomes like an outdoor room. That's really, really important. And I think almost anywhere in the world you can think of that you like to walk on a city street or a neighborhood, there's activity on both sides of the street. So it's first to think about that. And it's to have a mix of things so that the theater we are committed to reusing, to making available, whether for any kind of a local nonprofit, the Oxbow School and others have used it for talks and charitable events, but also to bring lectures, to bring film, for it to be available as a community resource. But then there'll be other users. There'll be restaurants, there'll be cafe, there'll be office users, but also on all of that vacant land that's parking lots now, that to me is the really deadening activity. And there ultimately would be shopping, would be hotel, would be housing, and then the entire river then would become a public realm, the whole entire riverway wrapping around it. So it's a really an urban neighborhood.
When I first showed up to meet him at COPIA, I was thinking, all right, this is going to be another indoor mall. What is it going to be? And I'm staring at this, as you said, forbidding building. And what he means by that is it's just a blank wall. It doesn't welcome you. The space doesn't welcome you. It's a parking lot and then a blank wall, really, and a large blank wall at that. And so I was thinking, so what are you going to put inside here? And his answer wasn't necessarily about what was going to be put inside there, but rather what was going to go around it, how the entire space was going to be used. He took me up onto the top deck, and we looked down around, and we should see the land, as he was saying on Google Earth, around it, all the gardens, all this beautiful stuff to be used. So as he designs it, and as he just said, there will be cafes, there'll be flows, there'll be walkways, there'll be people interacting on both sides. There'll be activity that encourages people to interact with each other and to interact with the spaces around them. And so it won't just be a building, and it's not about what he's doing to that building, but rather what you and your team will be doing to the entire land around it. And similarly, for those of you involved in politics, you know that Napa Pipe has been a really big deal politically, physically in terms of the land. And Keith is also going to be pretty much the man behind what happens to Napa Pipe. Do you want to tell us very briefly about the background of the problems and what that is going to become?
Yeah. So Napa Pipe, as locals know, depending on how old one is, as Napa Pipe or as Kaiser Steel or as basalt rock. So the Streblo family, Al Streblo, created this. It was a great entrepreneurial undertaking that began as a quarry, and then ultimately they built ships there. Somebody asked Al Streblo, how did you kind of be building ships in Napa? A bunch of farm boys here in Napa. What were you doing in that? He said, well, because we were here and somebody needed them. And so they just found an opportunity. They created this machinery. And over the years, many thousands of people worked there, worked hard, made good livings, took care of their families. And it served a really important purpose. But at this stage in our history, that kind of big industry simply doesn't occur. It can't be attractive. It's not functional in this part of the world. And so what we have is a 160-acre site, which is a big site. It's actually the size of virtually every medieval city in Europe. When you look at the paintings of Rembrandt, that's the size it was. The Delft was that size. Most every city and settlement was that size.
How big is Disneyland in comparison? Do you have any idea?
Disneyland gets very large because you depend on, once you introduce the automobile.
Okay.
So, but for example, neighborhoods like the Marina in San Francisco, what it is it's a 15-minute walk from the edge to the center. And that's kind of the limit that people will naturally go. And so it's almost entirely paved. It's been paved. It's been urbanized for 70 years. It is contaminated. We would, and so what interested me about it from the beginning was here's this enormous piece of property that is very central. It's surrounded by jobs. It's fronting on the river. The road networks and the rail come through it or around it. And it clearly needs reclamation. It needs some kind of new life. And so what is the right kind of new life for that place? And what I did for the first year was ask people, would say, well, what's your vision for the property? And I always said, it's a really big place. It could be a lot of things. What's your vision for it? And what I heard over and over again was particularly about housing. There were a few other things, but almost without exception was housing. But it was young single moms, working moms. It was older empty nesters. People were talking about a place they could walk, about a sense of neighborhood, about a much smaller place. It was households that were one person or two people. which reflects really what the largest growth in America and in Napa is today, much smaller households. No one said anything that sounded like seeking a single-family detached house. They were about a kind of walkable neighborhood. Jobs and activity and parks and other things emerged from that, but really at the core was about a neighborhood for some of, for example, the almost 30,000, 29,000 people every morning who wake up in another county and drive here into Napa for work. But some of them are very happy where they are, but a lot of them would like to live here, but there isn't a place that they can afford to live.
Right.
And a lot of young people, huge numbers that we've come to know, many thousands who've grown up here, want to stay in Napa, would like to have work in Napa, but they're not going to stay living with 4 roommates or with their parents indefinitely.
Right.
So we lose them. And similarly with a lot of empty nesters, that if the only option is a single-family detached house on a larger piece of land, you can't retain the kind of community that I think Napa has been, and my sense is most people want it to continue to be, which is a range of ages, a range of incomes. Thank you. I love the magic off-camera wine bottle.
That's right. It comes out of nowhere. And
this is our best kind of product placement.
Yes,
fabulous.
This is our winery of the month and our wine of the month. Their Cabernet. It is fantastic. I'm not going to get into the wine notes, but I would definitely pair this with a steak or with any kind of red meat. Or frankly, I'm just enjoying drinking it as it is.
Yes, it is. And I'm also just going to celebrate the fact that my family, who come from Boston at different times to visit, was one of the first places where my younger niece and nephew toured, and were given the most wonderful, hospitable tour and loved the winery.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I think Tia has a question.
Yes. Just some Twitter activity and wanting to know when are some of these changes going to take place? When are we going to see this happen?
Good question. I was listening to the news about the Curiosity rover that landed on Mars, and they were talking to people involved with that mission, and they said, this is so incredible. These people have been working for 7 years just to get this one mission forward. And I thought, well, gee, it's been 7 years since we bought Napa Pipe, and we've been working through the political process, and we've gotten a lot less far than Mars. But I think that this is the year that there's a landing, that there's a touchdown. There will be a determination made by the City Council of the City of Napa, the County Board of Supervisors. The county's been the lead in this process, but have invested enormous amounts of time and are very focused on making their judgment, their best judgment about what is the right future use. We've put our proposal forward. They will render their decision about that, and I believe that will happen within this year. And were it to happen within this year, then we would proceed with physical development of the site right away. So there'd be about 2 years of cleanup and site work. There's also the desire, the commitment by Costco is interested in opening up a facility that would be on the far side of the site.
Nice.
So Costco would come early. Then the whole area on the far side, away from the river, on the far side, on the water's edge, sort of half a mile away, would begin the residential neighborhood around the dry docks, and that would unfold. So physical work, we hope, beginning within potentially as soon as a year, but ultimately unfolding over the course of a decade.
Excellent. Well, so I mean, it'll take you 10 years to finish, but if you've been to the Carneros Inn, you know how beautiful it is. You know how amazing that space is. So here's the man who's going to be taking care of COPIA and the whole space around it for us, turning Napa into a better place, taking Napa Pipe from a big concrete slab into a neighborhood where people, young and old, can stay here as opposed to having to move away. And that actually means a lot in terms of tax dollars coming in our way as well. So I would like to thank you, Keith, for coming here and for what you do to Napa and for Napa.
That's very kind. I'm proud to have the privilege to be working here, and everything we do is really defined by people of Napa guiding us about where it should go. So thanks for the opportunity.
Excellent. And remember, this is @TootsSocial. Feel free to keep sending questions. I know we have a ton. We're going to get to them. We're going to let Keith know what those questions are. He will or will not get back to you, depending on if he wants to or not. And that's just the way it's going to be. But thank you very much for tuning in to TootsSocial. Now, you got something great coming up. You got the McGraw family and all kinds of info coming from them. So let's bring it on here, boys. Woo!